Carrie Geren Scoggins, Political Newsletter, Bible Prophecy Times Edition, End Times Prophecy News Update.
Hi, and welcome back to End Times Prophecy News Update. This is Carrie Geren Scoggins. I would like to mention today
Mark 3:25.
a house divided against itself, that house cannot stand. These famous words of Jesus Christ were stated when referring to why false prophets do not cast out demons. Because of course a house divided against itself cannot stand. God's enemy knows this. The opposite of unity is a house divided. One thing we've seen during the protests against the police brutality here in the United States is an ongoing stream of not being bipartisan, where you see Ferguson protesters not joining in union with the Tea Party protesters, although they have a common enemy. Remembering recently the NSA and IRS and federal offices and state and local law enforcement admitting to targeting Tea Party, Republicans, Christian religious right protesters, and going all the way back to Waco, when liberals in the media turned a blind eye, refused to air programming and videos by David Koresh's attorney Linda Thompson, such as Waco the Big Lie and Waco the Big Lie Continues, showing videotape proof he was not guilty of the accusations that they had said against him. The liberals in the mainstream media made sure that these truths were not told. Not only from who started the fire in the Waco compound, that it was on the videotape that all the mainstream media had, that the fire exuded from the tanks, and the use of military-style weapons against United States citizens back before they overturned the Posse Comitatus Act.
Former leader George Roden also accused David Koresh of getting his 75-year-old mother pregnant.
He raped my mother.
In response, David replied,
If I took a 70-year-old woman and got her pregnant, you better watch out. I'm God.
This statement, obviously said sarcastically, was repeated out of context over and over in the news media and by the FBI in the next weeks to portray David Koresh as having claimed he was God. Notice that no one is shooting at these agents as they climb the ladders. Several of these agents are carrying fully automatic rifles. The agent at the top right side just managed to shoot himself in the leg. Did you see it? We'll watch that again. The 9mm pistols carried by the ATF have no safety protection on them. As the agent climbs the ladder, he reaches for his gun in the holster. It discharges, wounding him in the leg and causing him to slip. He is able to continue up the ladder, however. According to ATF spokesman Royster, the raid on Mount Carmel had been planned and rehearsed for months.
They drilled over and over again, and we had our plan down, we had a diversion down, all were put into effect, and they were waiting.
Next, we see 3 of the 4 agents on the roof breaking into the window.
give me another tape then.
Let's watch this part again. No one is shooting at these agents. The shooting you were hearing is from the agents on the ground in front of the house. Notice that the agent is carrying 2 types of grenades on his belt. He also is carrying a smoke grenade. Both agents at the window toss in what appear to be smoke grenades. After these agents get through the window and into the room, you will briefly see the 4th agent on the roof, followed by one of those badly edited cuts in the film. The film picks up with the 4th agent tossing something into the room. It makes no sense for him to be throwing anything at all into a room where the 3 ATF agents have just gone, unless he intends to injure his own men. He also fires a machine gun into the room twice without looking. We'll watch it at normal speed, then slow it down. Now let's watch it in slow motion. Here he tosses something and withdraws his hand from the window. Next, without looking, he fires a burst from his machine gun into the room. Someone begins shooting from inside and bullet holes appear in the wall. In the midst of this gunfire, 3 holes appear at the same time. The agent fires his machine gun into the room a 2nd time. He's then hit by a round. The bullet strikes him in his helmet on the backside of his head. He falls to the roof and grabs his head. This agent is not hurt, and he later makes it safely down the ladder. Regardless of who is shooting from inside that room, this agent just threw what appears to have been a grenade and fired a machine gun twice into the room where his 3 fellow ATF agents have just gone. All 3 of the agents who were sent into the window were killed. All 3 were Bill Clinton's bodyguards during his presidential campaign. A 4th agent was killed that day before the shooting started, as he exited the cattle car.
We're extremely proud of what happened out there, how our agents conducted themselves under some unbelievable circumstances. They did a fantastic job.
David Koresh says,
they fired on us first, but like I say, they were scared.
They had it planned for months, so I don't think there's really anything they did wrong. Like I said, they had bigger guns than we did.
Notice the MP5 and M16 machine guns and knife sheaths on these ATF agents who claim to have been outgunned. On the 5th day, Mike Schroeder's body, chewed by wild dogs and birds, was picked up on a grappling hook from a helicopter and transported like a side of beef on a meat hook. His mother was in Waco, and she was finally notified of his death by telephone. His wife inside Mount Carmel was never notified of his death by the FBI. Peter Gent's body was left atop a water tower. It fell apart and dropped to the ground when the feds attempted to lift it with a grappling hook. The Branch Davidians buried what remained of his body. 2 of the ATF's own agents sum up the ATF mentality pretty well.
And the thing that I find totally abhorrent and disgusting is these higher level people took that same oath, and they violate the basic principles and tenets of the Constitution and the laws and simple ethics and morality. That's what disgusts me.
In my career with ATF, the people that I put in jail have more honor than the top administration in this organization. I know it's a sad commentary, but that's my experience with ATF.
On the fourth day, Jeff Jamar of the FBI is brought in to be in charge of the operation, replacing the ATF. From this point on, all news people will be kept 3 miles away from the Mount Carmel Center. ATF agents armed with machine guns and state troopers are posted at roadblocks to keep citizens 5 miles from the Mount Carmel Center. The only news that anyone in the United States will receive will be the official version told by Agent Bob Ricks of the FBI. It is illegal to use military troops against United States citizens under the Posse Comitatus Act, 18, United States Code 1385, but the FBI brings in tanks from nearby Fort Hood, a U.S. Army installation, to surround the house. National Guard troops and military equipment can be used in drug interdiction activities. Even though there was never any question of drug activity at Mount Carmel, as a ploy to avoid criminal penalties imposed by the Posse Comitatus Act, the ATF claims there is a suspected methamphetamine lab. Yet even after Texas Governor Ann Richards becomes aware that she was deceived by the ATF into consenting to the use of the tanks, she does not order the tanks off the property. From now on, the Branch Davidians will have no contact with the outside world. The FBI orders all the utilities, lights, phone, water, gas, and plumbing to the house to be disconnected. A telephone wired directly to the FBI is put in place. The FBI sets up a steady stream of torture directed at the Branch Davidians, which included many small children inside the house. Bright stadium lights keep the house lit up 24 hours a day, as a loudspeaker blares sounds of rabbits being slaughtered, Tibetan monk chants, and Nancy Sinatra's song, "These Boots Are Made for Walkin'." One refrain of that song says, "I just found me a brand new box of matches, yeah, and if you play with fire, you know you're gonna get burned." Whenever a Branch Davidian falls into disfavor with the FBI, the tanks are used to crush the person's car, or in the case of the children, their go-karts as punishment. On March 27th, the London Times runs an article describing the equipment used by the FBI. The British Strategic Air Services sends a specially equipped plane to take thermal images of the insides of the house, allowing the FBI to see everyone who is inside by the heat reflected from their bodies. The FBI inserts fiber optic cameras into the walls of the house and into air vents. The fiber optic cameras are attached to transmitters that then broadcast the signal to the FBI receiver. The FBI can now see and hear everyone inside the house at all times. On April 19, 1993, the entire country saw live coverage of the fire at Mount Carmel. We were told that the FBI had decided to punch holes to insert a non-flammable CS gas to urge the mothers and children to come out. We were told this was done out of concern for the children. Shown here are some training scenes of the impact of CS gas on grown men. To understand the full impact of the following scenes, it is important to understand the layout of the Mount Carmel Center. The underground bunkers were not under the house. There was a cement tunnel that ran from a trap door in the end of the house out to 2 main underground shelters out in the yard, one of which was in front of the water tower. Anyone who was inside either one of the underground bunkers should have been untouched by either fire or smoke. In this picture, this end of the house is where the trap door to the underground bunker was. This film was taken long before 6 a.m. the morning before the fire started. There is a large hole at the base of the building, and the building has already been knocked off its foundation. There is a round hole in the side of the building. What appears to be a large blood splatter is visible on a wall on the other side. Something, perhaps a curtain, flaps from inside the building. Remember, with the sophisticated bugging and surveillance equipment the FBI used, the FBI knew where all of these people were at all times. They could see them and hear them. underground bunker is in front of the water tower shown here before 6 a.m. This tank was over the tunnel to the underground bunker. For more than 2 hours, a tank is over the underground bunker or at the hole in the corner of the house at the entrance to the tunnel. Each time the tank opens, agents can be seen getting in or out, and the camera filming it conveniently cuts away. At approximately 6:10 a.m., smoke begins pouring from the underground bunker. None of the media mentions the fire in the underground bunker, yet this is when and where the first fire began and where many people lost their lives. The official version of when things began starts here around 6 that morning. There is a flag propped against the door. The flag is not black, and it is not wedged in the door as the media reported. It is a red and blue flag. Whatever it is, it appears to be a flag of a conqueror, not a flag set outside by the Branch Davidians. The first tank that is sent in is a tank retriever. It has no apparatus to insert any kind of gas. It appears at precisely the time the smoke you saw earlier was seen coming from the underground bunker. It is not making so-called small holes to insert gas. It is destroying the end of the house over the trap door that leads from the bunker, making sure that no one inside the now burning bunker can escape. A second hole is made in the side of the building, and a third hole is made at the front door. What these tanks are doing in each picture is collapsing the inside stairwells. The following footage proves beyond any doubt that the tanks intentionally set the house on fire. It proves that the Branch Davidians were murdered. Watch carefully as the tank backs out of the house. You can see that this tank has a gas jet on the front that shoots fire. You can also see the fire quite plainly. The tank goes into the house twice, and each time as it backs out, the fire at the gas jet is plainly visible. In the scenes that were shown throughout the country as the location where the fire supposedly started, smoke comes out a second-story window. As flames erupt from the second-story window, watch as a tank appears around the corner. There is an agent on this tank, as if he had just leapt down onto the top of the tank. It is difficult to see the details on a television because the quality is poor, but in the studio, he can be seen removing a fireproof-type hood. Another man is seen on the roof. The FBI claims that this man is a Branch Davidian. However, watch as he jumps from the roof and walks away. The tape quality again is poor when it broadcasts on a television set, but in the studio, while he is on the roof, he appears to take off a jacket. He jumps and lands on his feet. He very calmly walks away. As he walks, he can be seen removing a hood. He also appears to be carrying a rifle in his right hand. As the fire burns, helicopters circle over the center with men pointing guns out of the open doorways. Before, during, and after the fire, none of the agents involved are at all concerned that there could be explosions or bullets in the house. In these next scenes, you can plainly see agents walking in and out near the fire. In any ordinary crime scene, great pains are taken to preserve evidence. Here, tanks methodically push what remains of the house and evidence into the fire. The fire takes less than an hour to burn down the entire center. The fire is still smoldering at 5 that evening as agents walk in and around the fire. It is obvious that there is no genuine concern over the supposed millions of rounds of ammunition. Even though the FBI and the media consistently referred to this cement building as the bunker, the real bunkers were underground, as you were shown earlier. Many of the bodies that were found in the underground bunkers, not in the well house. In one final crude and insensitive display, the ATF raised its flag in victory over the ruins of Mount Carmel before the day was over. One voice was heard that day telling the truth. Brad Branch, a Branch Davidian who had left the Mount Carmel Center before the day of the fire.
Now they're finishing off the job right now. They're destroying the crime scene. America, this is the biggest lie that's ever been put before the American public, ever.
We're going to show you why the government lied. This photograph was taken at the front door of the Branch Davidian's house the morning the ATF arrived. If you examine it carefully, you can see there was a child outside as the ATF began firing wildly. The features of the child in the photograph were deliberately blurred by someone to prevent recognition. This alteration can be seen by the naked eye examining a print from the negative. The alteration is more proof of the depths to which people have stooped in covering up the truth about what happened that day. The child has been identified as probably being Cyrus Koresh, David Koresh's 8-year-old little boy. After the raid, these agents were captured on film running with a small body to an ambulance. If these agents were carrying an adult, you would see legs or some part of the body extending below or beyond the agents themselves. Other children were killed that day, too, as a helicopter fired down into the house. Annetta Richards, one of the grandmothers who came out with the children, told the world that she and the children had been fired down upon by the helicopters. Children who left Mount Carmel the day after the raid drew pictures for the psychiatrists who interviewed them.
And then as I asked her, is there anything else? She took her crayon and went, and I asked what that was, and she said that was bullets.
More proof that the helicopter had fired down on a room full of women and children. Dick DeGuerin, the attorney who entered Mount Carmel during the siege, also said he saw the room and bullet holes where a helicopter had sprayed the roof of the home, killing a nursing mother and children in the room. Unfortunately, he didn't share this information with the public until after the fire, nor did his former college classmate from Baylor University, FBI Director William Sessions. And in the tape-recorded conversations between the Branch Davidians and the McLennan County Sheriff's deputy, known as the 911 tapes, the Branch Davidians frequently refer to the helicopters firing in on them from overhead, and they are clearly terrified of them.
Another chopper with more of them.
What?
Another chopper with more people and more guns going on. Here they come.
Right. Wayne,
More firing. That's not us, that's them.
Okay, all right.
David Koresh, in the 911 tapes and in a radio interview, says that the ATF killed his children.
No, let me tell you something.
Yes, sir.
You see, you brought a bunch of guys and you killed some of my children. We told you we wanted to talk.
This photograph shows one of the helicopters used by the government on the day of the raid. This helicopter has a .308 machine gun mounted in the doorway. Notice the words United States Army on the tail, contrary to the government's claims that the 3 helicopters at Waco were unarmed National Guard helicopters. Remember how government officials frequently told us that the Branch Davidians were abusing the children, as if this raid was for the children?
What impressed me is that the Bureau time after time asked Koresh for some evidence that the children were okay. He sent in, the Bureau sent in videotapes asking Koresh to do something to prove that the children were okay. Negotiators consistently asked that the children be sent out. We did not receive verification that the children were okay.
The report admits that Janet Reno lied when she told us that David Koresh had refused to send down videotapes showing the condition of the children. It says, that night the Davidians sent out a videotape of the children in the compound. The negotiator's log shows that when the tape was reviewed, there was concern that if the tape were released to the media, Koresh would gain much sympathy. These two men, Olaitan Oyetumbi and Gary Spalding, drove day and night from South Bend, Indiana to bring baby food and chicken feed requested by the Branch Davidians to Mount Carmel. As you can see, they were very peaceful. Yet they were arrested. Their crime? Bringing baby food to Mount Carmel. This occurred only 3 days before Janet Reno claimed that the government assault with tanks was out of concern for the children. In these assault with tanks was out of concern for the children. In these scenes from the day of the fire, shown in Waco, the Big Lie, you can see that a tank was over the outdoor underground tunnel for more than 2 hours that morning. You can see agents getting in and out of those tanks over the underground bunker. And you can see that smoke was pouring from the underground bunker less than 5 minutes before a tank smashed the end of the house. The tank collapsed the house down onto the trap door to the underground bunker. Anyone in that bunker was trapped. No one in the house would be able to run to the safety of the bunker to escape the deadly gas and flames. Autopsies showed that many children died of blunt trauma. On the Maury Povich show, Coroner Rodney Crowe told how those children died.
3 children had blunt force trauma, but it was from the falling concrete in the bunker that fell on them. There's an opening in the top of the bunker, 8 feet approximately in diameter, and large chunks of concrete fell on these people.
21 of them died of gunshot wounds, and the rest died of smoke inhalation and, of course, suffocation due to being buried in debris when the bunker collapsed.
So now we know why the Treasury Department, the White House, and ATF, and Department of Justice were so desperately lying to us all along. We were told every day that this raid, the gassing, the attack on the house, and the destruction of evidence had all been because of concerns for the children.
We had concerns for the children.
The Big Lie continues.
From Waco the Big Lie and Waco the Big Lie continues, one can see striking resemblances between the Waco case and Ferguson. The Waco video footage is proof the Branch Davidians were not firing back at agents, just as Mike Brown was not firing back at the officer that shot him. Mike Brown had his hands in the air in a sign of surrender. As well, so did David Koresh, of whom also made a call to the local sheriff telling him that they won't let us come out. They won't let us surrender. Asking the sheriff to contact the FBI and BATF and ask them to stop firing on them so that they could surrender. This plea went unheard, even after a white flag was stuck out the door. They continued to fire on the compound with intent to kill.
The liberals gathered together with the conservatives at that time and began to protest, we wouldn't have seen what we did in Ferguson. Military-style policing. And in Ferguson, we did not see many of the Tea Party showing up. Some were there. And some conservative, non-mainstream media, as well as conservative mainstream shows. Everyone from The Blaze to InfoWars and even Fox News had given coverage to Ferguson in the beginning. However, I've noticed Fox News recently aired a report that turned out to be false, where chants from protesters at Ferguson were changed from saying what they actually said to attempting to make it sound as if they were chanting that they wanted to kill cops. There's not been a bipartisan effort to end police brutality and stop the abuse of a public office of harassment of political protesters. Again, a house divided against itself cannot stand. There needs to be unity between the Occupy protesters, the World Trade Organization protesters, the Tea Party, the Christian religious right Republicans, the Ferguson protesters. Straight across the board. This is our civil rights at stake. We can put aside party lines to stand up for truth and getting justice. If we can't do that, we'll have neither. Just as the Tea Party needs to see the pain and the grief in the face of Eric Garner's mother, Mike Brown's family, Tamir Rice, his family and friends, the Ferguson protesters need to remember the pain of Waco, the lives it affected, and how the federal government came in and destroyed all that spoke against what went on in Waco. The protesters that gave out the video Waco the Big Lie were on a hit list by the government, targeted for the rest of their lives. Both sides of the aisle need to begin to see the pain the other side has gone through. And remember, it's the same culprit. Big out-of-hand government and law enforcement. A do what thou wilt, satanic attitude from our government. And in neither case, from Waco all the way to Ferguson, and all the cases in between, where it was common in every state to suffer damages at the hands of law enforcement, there's never been any justice. The old saying, one cop doesn't turn in another cop. Fraternal Order of Police Secret Code. The police policing themselves. Not subject to public scrutiny or of a jury by their peers, where they're brought before a judge and a jury and asked to justify their actions. And when they were, in the cases such as Darren Wilson, the prosecutor acts more like the defense attorney. No cross-examination, and take everything that the officer says as his word is gold. When the rest of society has seen the corruption. All America wants tonight is justice. No one wants to see officers brutalized, acts of retaliation. America just simply wants justice. And an end to one cop don't turn in another cop. And that crooked law enforcement never answers for their actions. This is a call for unity tonight, straight across the board, from the Tea Party, Occupy, Anonymous, Ferguson protesters, World Trade Organization protesters, even the pro-life and pro-choice protesters. Noting that our federal government is watching all of the above. The needless surveillance money-making scam has brought in political and religious harassment, where now our government is illegally targeting protesters to surveillance. And we all know what surveillance means. Day and night of informants stalking them, getting them fired from their jobs, harassing them online, recruiting their family as informants against them, coming in to steal, kill, and destroy. All because they've said something someone in the government does not like. So this is far more than just acts of police brutality, where officers have literally killed people with no remorse and no justice ever brought. To the point that Americans feel that the cops are now seemingly above the law, that they never answer to the laws that they are said to enforce and paid by our taxpayer dollars to enforce. That there's somehow a double standard, This is also about our legal right to protest without being harassed, surveillanced, or made an enemy of the people, as they're referred to in socialist nations, an enemy of the state, someone who dares oppose the state's views. Take a look back at the loss of First Amendment rights. The legal right to protest, the legal right to oppose popular viewpoint or the state's views, the legal right to debate the issues, the legal right to scrutinize government employees' actions, especially that of law enforcement. Remember this tonight and keep it in your prayers for unity in the United States, straight across the board, and for an awakening in the public's eyes, demanding accountability on state employees, especially that of our law enforcement, federal, state, and local, as our government has gotten out of hand. This is End Times Prophecy News Update. Thank you for listening.
This has been another edition of Carrie Geren Scoggins Political Newsletter, Bible Prophecy Times Edition, End Times Prophecy News Update.